Hey y'all, it's Natalie. Welcome to the Cherry on Top Try Something New January YouTube Pop. I am trying UV resin. Here are the supplies that I have today. Gloves are important. Don't touch your wet resin. You also need a respirator and you need a ventilated space as well. I have ColorPort UV resin. I already had this little light. It's the same kind of light that you would use for gel nails if you do your own gel nails at home. I have silicone molds. And I have these little mixing cups and mixing spoons to put different colors and things into the resin. And then I have those little tools, which are kind of paint brushes. They're like silicone paint brushes, and they have sturdy bits at the end. Those are also really good to have. So I'm just going to start by filling up a cup with a small amount of the UV resin. And then I have filler as well. So I'm going to go in with these silver stars, and they're just like little sequins or confetti kind of. I didn't have enough, so I added in a little bit more. And I'm just stirring it around my resin, so now I will have sparkly resin. And I did try to use those pins with little silicone earring backs to kind of make a pinhole, and it did not work. And that's part of kind of what this is about. We're trying new things. We're going to talk about what works and what doesn't, which is kind of cool. So that's what I'm fiddling with there. I end up just drilling holes because what I'm doing is I'm making charms, and so they need holes in them, right? To be able to put jump rings through them and put them onto whatever you're making into a charm. So that's where I was going with that. So that's what that is, if you're wondering. That pink is actually a pre-tinted UV resin. It's a different brand than the ColorPort brand, which is American Crafts. And you can also find it in the store. It's in a very small tube, but it's also very affordable, and it's pre-tinted, so it's super quick and easy to use. So it was fun. I also really like the tip. It's much easier to just kind of squirt it in. So I'm just making it in for me, for Natalie. So that's what I'm starting with there. And I cured it on the back. I did it a couple times, and now I'm actually curing it from the other side to just make sure that it all gets nice and cured. We don't have any wet resin. Now watch me pop it out here. Comes out super easily out of that silicone mold, and I'll put it back in frame in just a moment. But I love it. It looks so good. And so you can see kind of floating in there the star bits, and then also surrounded by pink. And so now I'm going to make a few more. I wanted to make a couple of initials for Christmas gifts, and then the L is for Lachlan. So they were right here next to each other, so I thought that'd be good. So I'm just kind of layering in things. I put in a little bit of the silver stars, and then I added the pink, and then I'm kind of filling back in with more silver stars. I will say it was a bit of a mess with the spoons. I do, like I said before, I really like the squirty tip of the bottle. So I do think that I would prefer to use the resin in a squirt bottle. Of course, that doesn't really always work if you want to mix things into it, but I guess you could squirt clear resin in and then do the mix-ins later maybe. And then also mixing it in your mold would also kind of keep it from having a lot of bubbles, which would be helpful. So that yellow color is going to bring me to my first tip or things that I learned, which is, it does seem like starting this is quite a few supplies, and I suggest borrowing from friends or family or partners or someone who has things that you might be able to use. My husband has actually made resin furniture before with the kind of resin that just takes a really long time to harden, not the kind that you put under a UV light. So he had this mixed in stir and color. So that's where that yellow color came from. So there you see me fiddling with the pins again that I had used to try to make the holes, and they didn't work. They didn't work really at all. So what I'm going to do later is try to drill through them. But before I do that, you can see I had like a big, we'll call it a decoberry there on the side, and I am using my lower grit sandpaper to work on the edges and the bits that are hanging off that I really don't want. And then you work your way up with the finer grit to make it smooth and really polished and nice. So now I am using my husband's drill to drill a little hole through here. And so if that's not really your forte, I tried to use this Dremel, but the bit that fit in the drill was smaller. So now I'm going to work on another set of charms, and I'm going to use these silicone molds. I have two different ones, but I decided to just work on a camping charm for my camping album. So I use this one from Prima, which is moths and wings, which I really love. So we're going to do kind of a different technique. I'm going to apply with the squirt tip. Like I said, I like to use thin layers within the mold here. So first I'm just starting with a clear bit at the very bottom, and I'm going to sprinkle things on top of it. So I'm going to start with this purple glitter. Oh no, I'm not. I'm going to start with this. It's like an iridescent flaky bit of confetti. So I'm going to add that to one. So that'll be cool with like iridescent wings kind of. And on the other one, I'm going to just sprinkle glitter. And then, so we're going to work in layers and we're going to cure that. And then we're going to build other layers on top of it. I think after doing both of these techniques, I really kind of like the layering technique more. I think it's a little more time consuming, but it also gave me more control on how to build my piece. So, and it probably also depends on how big your mold is as well. So I just sprinkled a little glitter in there, and then I'm using the end of the silicone paintbrush, the tip end, just kind of swirl it in and make it look nice. And we're going to cure those and come back in for another layer. So there you can see I have a glitter layer, an iridescent layer. So now I've used some of Eric, my husband, his little powders, and I added this really nice pearlescent, I would say, white color. And so I was kind of trying to keep it in the middle. So like kind of the bug part of the moth, the body part of the moth. And so I'm just using the tip again to kind of spread it into the little antenna areas. And I'm going to layer up again after this. Another thing that I found with doing the layers is that, I had a lot of extra, so I decided to fill in a whole nother moth and just make it totally white. And that's the one I actually ended up using to make my charm here. You'll see in a moment. This video is kind of long because I go through the process of making the custom UV resin pieces, and then I also put them on a charm. So there's my nail light again. So again, layers, it's not filled up to the brim. I've created a little bit of blue. I was kind of going for a galaxy look on this bug. So I put a little bit of blue on either side of the white. And then I decide to kind of have some clear pieces as well. So I go in with my clear resin just out of the tip of the bottle. And I kind of flood the rest of the mold. So I just fill it up the rest of the way that is not filled. And then we'll kind of feather in that blue that exists now into the clear bits. And so it ends up looking really cool. That's probably my favorite technique I've tried so far. You can also do alcohol inks with these, which I haven't tried yet, but I am excited to try that as well. So, even though it might seem like you need quite a few supplies, really you don't. If you have a mold and you have some UV resin, it's pretty much all you need. If you have other art supplies, you can kind of add them in and just kind of mess around with them and see what works and see what tints your resin and things like that. So had a lot of fun with it, and I found it's best to like fill up your mold, and that way you don't have like bubbles inside, and then you can always sand down the back to make it a little flatter. So then I have a really nice like coppery rust color, and I'm going to do kind of the same technique, which is filling in part of the wings on either side of the body and then kind of flood the rest with clear resin to just kind of make it where it's not so solid of a color. I really like the clear bits that you can see through and the feathering in of the colors. And there I go with my tip, and it creates like little swirlies, so the color will kind of sit in the clear and be kind of swirled, which is really nice. So we'll cure those and I'll pop them out here in a moment. I'll take this chance to let you know this is a really big hop. We have a whole new design team out of Cherry on Top, and I'm super pumped about it. It's super talented and it's big, and so our hop is big now. So you can hop around and leave comments on everybody's video, and you'll be entered for a chance to win $20 in store credit to the Cherry on Top store, which is super generous and awesome. There's the finished pieces. Aren't they gorgeous? I'm so excited. Well, I say finished. They're not completely finished because now we are going to, again, use those different pieces of sandpaper to kind of clean up the edges and everything. And I'm also going to work on the backs as well. So I cleaned up the edges on that, and then, whoa, sorry about that zoom. These are really fine grit. So that's 1,000 and that's 1,500, and they can be wet or dry. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to them. I feel like they work pretty well with water. They make everything really nice and smooth. And then I'm going to rub the edges and the back sides of these charms on those. That's just the best way that I found to work on that. And also, not gonna lie, I didn't want to ruin my fingernails. Isn't that so pretty and sparkly? I'm super excited about these moths. So I'll transition here in a moment into how I'm going to use these to create charms. And super cute. I end up not using that one, but it's not because I don't like it. It's just because it didn't really go with the color scheme that I ended up picking out with beads. But I'm going to use it on another one because the moths I thought would be really good for my travel album. So I'm going to make little charms for my mini Life Crafted travel camping albums. Sorry, I said travel, but I meant camping because bugs camping, you know. So that's what I'm using those for. And so I'm going to use the white and then the white and orange one for the one I make today. And then I'll save this blue one for just a different one because I have one for each year. So I have a charm here. It's a lobster claw, I think is what it's called. And then it has a chain attached to it. So now I'm going to go back to the initials. I'm working with the K. That is for my sister-in-law. I made it for Christmas. She asked for some planner supplies. So I made this little charm to be her planner charm, and it can go on her bag or on her planner spiral or whatever. So I attach, again, remember when I said one thing that I learned is, the next thing that I learned is use bigger jump rings than you expect. So for these custom acrylic pieces, the regular size jump ring that I kind of had in my stash was not big enough. So I kind of either had to make my own or kind of steal some. I have like some recycled jewelry that I'm not really wearing anymore. So I would steal like a larger jump ring from that. So make sure you have a plethora of sizes to choose from. And then I have a little chain there, and now I'm just going to string smaller bits of beads to attach to each ring of the chain. Sometimes I attach 2 beads to the chain, and it really fills out the charm and everything. And I'm not going to go into how you wrap the wire because that is not my forte. You're not here to learn that from me. You can find very good YouTube videos about that. But there is the final one. I am happy about it. Number 3 thing that I learned when making these charms, it is none of my business where the clips go. So when you're wrapping the wire around the bead and you have to clip the little end off, none of my business. Don't know where those end up. They fly everywhere. Maybe wear goggles. Maybe that's another tip. I was really happy how that looked. I clipped it onto the zipper of her little planner bag. So you can see here, I picked out all my beads and they kind of bent like worms and whites. And so I was like, okay, let's set aside the blue moth and just stick with the white and the orange moth. So I have pins here that will stop a bead. And that's where I'm showing you where I'm going to put the charm. And then I also have a few long pins that have the hook on the end of them, so you can add another dangly bead. So I'm just going to add a few. I'm using a different chain on this one and another lobster claw at the end. And I'm using, again, a large jump ring to attach the larger charm, the moth, to the very end of the chain. A bigger jump ring than I initially thought that I needed because that is something that I learned. These custom pieces are cool because you get to customize them, but they're pretty chunky, which I like. I like that. So my plan, I don't know how long it will take me, but I hope to make charms for all of my albums. I think it will be a great way to kind of like show the reader what's inside. And so I'm just using this little tray to hold all of the beads that I plan to kind of intersperse on my chain. There won't be any rhyme or reason. We're not going to have like a pattern or anything, but I'm just going to use some of these wooden beads mixed with the whites and mixed with the mustard yellow colored. And again, add a bead or 2 beads to every link in the chain. So it'll be nice and chock full of beads to dangle off the side of my Life Crafted album. And yeah, I think those are all of the tips that I learned while making this. Oh, another thing, when I was talking about borrowing my husband's supplies, so some of those pliers are mine, but some of them are his. So again, until you maybe decide that beading or UV resin is for you, you don't have to go and buy like every single supply. You can use what you have on hand at home, or ask to borrow some from a friend if you need to. So like I said, I borrowed a few of my husband's resin supplies, and I borrowed some of his tools for my beading. I probably should invest in some of my own though, since I do plan to make them. I'm hoping that my bead wrapping will get better. My dad is actually really good with bead wrapping as well. He makes his own jewelry. He takes lapidary classes and does rock tumbling, which is kind of cool. So maybe I should probably get him to give me a lesson on that, maybe in real life rather than watching YouTube videos. But I'm not going to teach bead wrapping because that is not my forte. Just know that you can easily find a YouTube video to learn how to do it. And if I can do it, you can do it. As long as you don't have any problems with your hands. I will say I did have to use my fingers, a little bit of strength in my hands. So I could see where if you had arthritis or some other problems with your fingers or your hands, it could be difficult. And I'm not the most graceful, so I did drop a lot and sometimes lose kind of my beading off of the chain. I found if I would try to use pliers to hold the delicate little part while I was trying to close the jump ring or the chain ring, then that would kind of help me from maybe dropping it and kind of getting frustrated. I love those little leaves too that I had. These are all just beads that you can buy in the store. Might have a little bit of a hoarding problem and a stash and a collection of beads, but I think that's okay. You never know when you might need beads. You can also use beads on like scrapbooking layouts. You can use beads for tons of things. I like to use beads on embroidery projects, so it's never a problem to have a stash of beads laying around the house. We're almost done. I know this was a long one, but this was my try something new in January. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any questions down below. Again, hop around. The link to everyone's videos are down below. Hop around, leave a comment, and you'll be entered for a chance to win $20 of store credit to cherryontop.com. There is the final charm that I made for my scrapbook album. I'm going to zoom in here for a minute. So you can see it's pretty full. I have at least one bead, sometimes two on every link. And then I added the smaller moth in the top part. And so it's nice and dangly. So I'm going to use my, I did use my We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile, and I made a hole in the album. You can also set an eyelet in there. I just need to buy new eyelets. I didn't have any right now, but I also don't think that it would be a problem to keep it like that. But I just put a jump ring in there and then attach my lobster hook, and it hangs so nicely. And I think when you're setting it up on your shelf, just to have that dangle there is so fun. Here are all the still shots. They'll be in the gallery as well. And the other charm that I made for my sister-in-law will be in the shots at the end. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe. Bye y'all.